Hear that? That low, nervous silence crawling in the background. That's the sound people make when something they can't control is becoming real. Look at you. Really look. While you're standing there getting quieter, sharper, more deliberate, your ex is unraveling in public, losing composure, losing sleep, losing the version of reality where they were the center of the story. And you're wondering why. Why you feel heavier now. Why your name doesn't get said out loud anymore. It gets whispered. Here's the part nobody warned them about. They thought losing you meant peace. They thought walking away meant closure. They thought once you were gone, you'd shrink back into whatever small, predictable shape they had you in. Something manageable. Something forgettable. Something they could explain away with a lazy story when your name came up. But that's not what happened. What happened is that when they left, or when you finally let go, the noise stopped. The distractions died, the emotional chaos went quiet. And in that quiet, something ancient in you woke up. Something that doesn't beg, something that doesn't explain itself. Something that doesn't need to be understood to be feared. They knew you when you were bleeding, when you were bending, when you were soft enough to mistake love for survival. They saw the saint in you, patient, forgiving, overgiving. What they never bothered to look for was the other half. The one forged in disappointment. The one that learns instead of pleads. The one that adapts. That's the paradox that's driving them insane. They remember the version of you who would have broken under this pressure, who would have chased answers, who would have needed closure, validation, reassurance. But the version standing here now, this one doesn't chase. This one observes. This one doesn't explain pain. It converts it. And that terrifies them, because your ex isn't losing it because they miss you. They're losing it because they can't place you anymore. You don't react the way you used to. You don't announce your moves. You don't leak emotion where it can be weaponized. You don't perform healing for an audience. You just move differently, speak differently, carry silence like a loaded weapon. They feel it when mutuals act strange. They feel it when your name pops up in rooms you're not in. They feel it when people start asking questions they don't have answers to. What happened to them? When did they get like this? Why do they seem untouchable now? That's when panic sets in, because your growth didn't come with a spotlight. It came with absence. You didn't glow up loudly. You sharpened quietly. And quiet transformations are the most dangerous kind. Loud change can be tracked. Quiet change rewrites the terrain. You became unpredictable, not chaotic, calculated. You stopped being an open book and became a classified file. And now, they're spiraling, trying to reconcile two impossible truths at once. The person they underestimated is evolving, and they no longer have access. That's the angel and the demon colliding inside you. The angel learned empathy. The demon learned restraint. And restraint, that's power. Your ex lives in reaction, in comparison, in emotional static. Every move you make, even the ones they imagine, triggers something in them because it reminds them of what they lost control over. Not you, the narrative. They needed you to stay small so their version of events could survive. They needed you frozen in time, still hurting, still reaching, still explainable. But you stepped out of the frame. Now your name circulates without context, without permission, without their input. And that's why they're unraveling, because becoming a name, people whisper, isn't about fame. It's about impact. It's about presence that doesn't announce itself. It's about a gravity you didn't ask for, but earned through pain. You didn't heal to be seen. You healed to be free. And freedom looks like madness to people who live off control. So let them lose it. Let them spiral. Let them talk themselves in circles, trying to understand how the one they thought they knew became someone they can't reach, can't read, can't replace. You are not louder. You are not colder. You are deeper. And depth scares people who only learned how to swim in shallow validation. Keep moving the way you are. Quiet, focused, unpredictable. Let your absence do the talking. Let your name travel ahead of you. Because the moment they stopped being the center of your world, you became the center of your own. And that's the kind of transformation nobody ever recovers from watching. And the longer they watch you from a distance, the worse it gets for them. Because time isn't softening the impact. It's sharpening it. They expected the usual arc, the predictable one. You fall apart, you spiral, you replace them too fast, or you can't replace them at all. You post sad quotes. You chase distractions. You make noise so everyone knows you're doing better. They prepared themselves for that version of healing. What they weren't prepared for was silence with direction. You didn't rush to fill the void. You didn't numb it. You didn't perform recovery like a spectacle. You sat with the discomfort long enough to hear what it was trying to teach you. And once you heard it, you changed the rules of how you live. That's when the shift became irreversible. You stopped negotiating with people who only valued you when you were convenient. You stopped over-explaining your intentions to people committed to misunderstanding you. You stopped offering access to anyone who treated your presence like a resource instead of a privilege. And that recalibration, it rewired how people experience you. Your ex feels it as loss of relevance, loss of leverage, loss of emotional dominance. They used to know how to pull you closer or push you away. They used to know which version of you would show up depending on the mood, the timing, the manipulation. Now there's only one version, centered, observant, unmoved. That consistency is what's breaking them, because unpredictability used to be you reacting emotionally. Now unpredictability is you not reacting at all. You don't reward chaos with attention. You don't dignify provocation with explanation. You don't chase closure from people who benefited from your confusion. You became psychologically unavailable to dysfunction, and dysfunction hates that. Your ex is stuck replaying old memories, trying to find the moment where they still had power, trying to locate the last version of you that needed them. They scroll back through conversations like a forensic analyst at a crime scene, searching for evidence that you're still reachable. But every silence you maintain rewrites history. Every boundary you keep intact tells the truth louder than words ever could. They feel it when their name doesn't trigger you anymore. They feel it when you don't react to indirect shots. They feel it when mutual connections stop reporting back with useful intel. You've gone dark, not because you disappeared, but because you upgraded. And here's the part that cuts deepest for them. You didn't harden into bitterness. You didn't become cruel. You didn't turn into the villain they hoped you'd be so they could justify everything. You became calm. Calm with teeth. The kind of calm that says, I see everything, and I still choose restraint. The kind of calm that knows exactly how destructive it could be, and doesn't need to prove it. That's the angel who learned strategy. That's the demon who learned mercy. That's power refined, not raw. Your ex can't compete with that because they're still trying to win emotional games you're no longer playing. They're still seeking validation from reactions. while you've moved into a state where your validation comes from alignment. You're no longer trying to be chosen. You're no longer trying to be understood. You're no longer trying to be remembered. And paradoxically, that's why you are. People whisper your name now because you don't push it into rooms. You don't announce your growth. You don't narrate your evolution. You let results speak, and results have a way of traveling faster than rumors. Your presence feels different because it's no longer fragmented. There's no internal tug-of-war between who you are and who you're trying to be for someone else. That internal coherence creates a pressure, a gravity that people feel instinctively. And your ex feels it as displacement. They're not at the center of your emotional universe anymore, and that destabilizes their identity. Because for a while your attention reinforced their sense of importance. Your reactions gave them feedback. Your pain made them feel powerful. Now your indifference doesn't insult them, it invalidates them. And invalidation is unbearable for someone who built their self-worth on influence. You didn't take revenge. You didn't seek justice. You didn't demand accountability. You simply withdrew your energy and reinvested it in yourself. That move alone changed everything, because energy doesn't disappear, it reallocates. And when you stop feeding people who feed on your emotional output, they starve. Not physically, psychologically. They lose their sense of control, their narrative authority, their imagined significance. That's why they're losing it. Meanwhile, you're becoming someone who can walk into uncertainty without panic. Someone who can hold tension without collapsing. Someone who can be alone without feeling abandoned. Someone who can be desired without being dependent on desire. That's not healing, that's initiation. You cross the line most people never do. The line where pain stops being personal and starts being instructional. Where loss stops being a tragedy and starts being a catalyst. Where love stops being a transaction and starts being a standard. So let them unravel. Let them obsess. Let them tell themselves whatever story helps them sleep. You're no longer available to the version of reality where they mattered more than your growth. You're becoming a name people whisper, not because you're loud, but because when you speak, move, or decide, something shifts. And the ones who knew you before, they'll always be the most haunted by who you became after. And the haunting part for them is this: they don't know when it happened. There's no clean timestamp, no dramatic announcement, no single moment they can point to and say, that's when they changed. That uncertainty eats at them, because it means the transformation was happening while they weren't paying attention, while they were distracted, while they assumed you'd always be there, orbiting their moods, absorbing their chaos, shrinking yourself to keep the peace. They missed the quiet weeks where you stopped oversharing. They missed the nights where you sat with discomfort instead of running from it. They missed the internal negotiations you ended, the ones where you kept betraying yourself just to keep someone else comfortable. And now they're staring at the result without access to the process. That's destabilizing, because when people don't understand how power was built, they assume something sinister. They tell themselves you must be pretending, masking, performing confidence. They wait for the collapse they're convinced is coming, because that's how they operate. They fake strength until it runs out. But you didn't fake anything. You endured. You metabolized pain instead of exporting it. You let grief sharpen you instead of hollowing you out. You learned when to speak and, more importantly, when to shut up and let people reveal themselves. That's why you feel dangerous now, even when you're calm. Your ex senses that they can't provoke you into showing weakness anymore. They can't pull you into old dynamics. They can't bait you into defending your character. And that lack of access creates paranoia. Because when someone can't read you, they project. They imagine you plotting. They imagine you judging. They imagine you watching. And the irony? You're not thinking about them nearly as much as they think you are. That's the cruelty of growth. It's asymmetric. You moved on internally long before it became visible externally. You detached emotionally before you detached socially. So by the time they realized something was off, you were already gone. What they're witnessing now isn't your reaction to them. It's your alignment with yourself. And alignment is unsettling to anyone who survives by disruption. You're not driven by proving anything anymore. You don't need to win the breakup. You don't need to be seen as the good one or the victim or the healed one. You're past the stage where identity depends on opposition. That makes you ungovernable. Your ex still needs friction to feel alive. Drama, validation, emotional feedback loops. You removed yourself from the circuit, and now the system malfunctions. They feel it in their body. The anxiety spikes, the compulsive checking, the urge to poke you just to see if you're still there, still reachable, still human in the way they remember. But you didn't lose your humanity. You refined it. You learned that compassion without boundaries is self-destruction. You learned that love without self-respect is dependency. You learned that being understanding to people who refuse to understand you is just another form of abandonment of yourself. So you stopped, and stopping is what turned you into a rumor. People whisper your name now because they can't categorize you. You don't fit into the boxes they're used to. You're not bitter, not desperate, not loud, not begging to be seen. You exist in a lane that requires curiosity to approach and courage to stay. Your ex doesn't have either. They're trapped between nostalgia and resentment, between missing who you were and being threatened by who you are, between wanting access and fearing exposure, because deep down, they know something they'll never say. If they had treated you better, they might still recognize you, but they didn't. And now the version of you that would have tolerated less no longer exists. You didn't turn cold, you turned precise. You didn't shut down, you tuned in. You didn't harden, you condensed. Pressure didn't destroy you, it clarified you. So let the whispers continue. Let the curiosity grow. Let the confusion spread. You are not responsible for the discomfort of people who benefited from your silence when you were suffering. You are here now, present, intentional, self-directed. And that presence carries weight. The kind of weight that doesn't need noise. The kind of weight that bends rooms. The kind of weight that turns exes into spectators and survivors into symbols. You're not chasing a spotlight. You are the shift people feel when something irreversible has already happened, and what they can't escape, no matter how hard they try to distract themselves, is the realization that you didn't win by doing more. You won by doing less. Less explaining, less reacting, less bleeding in public, less negotiating your worth with people who never intended to pay full price. That kind of restraint rewires how others perceive you. It signals something deeper than confidence. It signals self-possession, and self-possession is threatening to anyone who once felt entitled to your emotional labor. Your ex keeps replaying moments where they had leverage, when a text could shift your mood, when distance could make you anxious, when affection could be rationed to keep you compliant. Those moments haunt them now, because they no longer exist anywhere except memory. And memory has no power over someone who has outgrown the emotional climate it came from. You're not the same terrain anymore. You stopped being a place people could trespass. You stopped being a space people could occupy without consequence. You stopped being a source people could drain and still expect gratitude. And when that shift happens, something strange occurs. People who once felt superior start feeling exposed. Because your calm forces comparison. Your boundaries force self-reflection. Your silence forces them to sit with themselves. And most people cannot stand themselves without distraction. Your ex isn't losing it because you're thriving. They're losing it because you're no longer available to confirm their version of who they are. You're no longer a witness to their identity, no longer a participant in their emotional theater. You exited the role, and now the stage feels empty. They tell themselves you've changed in the worst ways, that you're colder, darker, less loving. That story comforts them because it preserves their innocence. It allows them to avoid the harder truth. You didn't lose warmth. You redirected it. You didn't stop loving. You stopped overgiving. You didn't become distant. You became selective. That's not corruption. That's refinement. You learned that not everyone who desires you deserves you. That not everyone who misses you respected you. That not everyone who wants access intends to care for what they touch. Those realizations didn't make you cruel. They made you accurate. Your ex is spiraling because accuracy strips away illusion. It reveals where effort was one-sided, where affection was conditional, where power was uneven. And once you see that clearly, you can't unsee it. Neither can they. They sense that if you were to speak now, calmly, precisely, without emotion, the truth would land heavier than any argument ever did. And that possibility terrifies them, so they provoke, they speculate, they rewrite history, they try to make noise. Noise is what people use when they're afraid of silence. But you've learned how to live there. Silence taught you who listens. Silence taught you who stays. Silence taught you what actually matters when all performance falls away. That's why you move slower now. Why you choose carefully. Why your words feel deliberate instead of desperate. You're no longer trying to be everything to someone who treated you like an option. You're becoming everything to yourself. And that internal loyalty changed the frequency you operate on. People feel it when you walk away without resentment. They feel it when you don't flinch at misunderstanding. They feel it when you don't rush to correct narratives that will collapse on their own. Your ex feels it most of all, because they were there before the shift, and now they're locked out after. They don't know how to engage with someone who doesn't need emotional closure from them, someone who doesn't seek validation through reaction, someone who doesn't require acknowledgement to move forward. You're not seeking peace anymore. You're embodying it. And peace, when it's real, doesn't chase. It doesn't argue. It doesn't announce its arrival. It just changes the room. That's why your name carries weight now. That's why people lower their voice when they say it. That's why curiosity follows you instead of pity. You didn't survive to prove anything. You survived to become unreachable by the patterns that once controlled you. And the ones who benefited from those patterns, they'll always be the loudest when you no longer respond. Let them talk. Let them wonder. Let them unravel in the background. You're not here to be understood by your past. You're here to move forward with a clarity that doesn't need permission, and a presence that makes even absence feel loud. And once someone feels that shift, they never forget who you became after they lost access. Slow down. Yeah, right there. Feel that pressure in your chest, that quiet hum in the room. That's time realizing it miscalculated you. They said time would humble you. They whispered it like a curse, like gravity, like erosion, like just wait. Life will sand him down. She'll soften. They always do. But look at you now. Time didn't humble you. It forged you. And that's what's got them shaken. You were supposed to age into compliance. You were supposed to grow tired, smaller, quieter, easier to predict. They expected years to dilute you, to drain the sharpness, to make you grateful for crumbs and afraid of risk. Instead, every year sharpened the blade. Every loss trained your eyes. Every betrayal calibrated your instincts. Every delay rewired your patience into something predatory. Time didn't weaken you. It educated you. And that's the paradox they can't survive. See, time humbles the ones who resist pain. Time breaks the ones who cling to comfort. Time crushes the ones who need applause, validation, safety, permission. But you metabolized pain. You digested chaos. You learned to breathe in uncertainty like oxygen. You didn't heal the way saints heal. You didn't break the way victims break. You evolved like something dangerous. There's a reason they keep saying, "I don't know what happened to you." There's a reason they say, "You used to be different." They're right. You used to bleed where now you observe. You used to react where now you calculate. You used to explain where now you let silence do the damage. Time stripped you of illusions, not power. It burned off the fake morals. It burned off the need to be liked. It burned off the fantasy that being good guarantees being safe. And what remained was precision. They thought time would turn you soft, but time showed you the truth. Light without darkness is naive. Kindness without boundaries is self-harm. Peace without strength is surrender. So you became the contradiction, part saint because you know restraint, part psychopath because you know when not to flinch, part angel because you see the higher pattern, part demon because you're willing to do what others only pray someone else will do. That duality, that's not damage, that's adaptation. An adaptation terrifies systems built on predictability. You don't move when expected. You don't break where tested. You don't speak when provoked. You don't chase when baited. Time taught you something illegal. Unpredictability is power. You stopped reacting to clocks. You stopped racing timelines. You stopped panicking about age, deadlines, milestones, comparisons. While they were watching the calendar, you were watching people. You learned who panics under pressure, who leaks information, who folds when ignored, who betrays when threatened, who pretends when scared. Time didn't slow you down. It turned the world into a slow-motion crime scene. And now they feel it. They feel that when you enter a room, something shifts. You're not loud. You're not rushed. You're not desperate. You're loaded. They can't read your tempo anymore. They don't know if you're early or late, if you're building or waiting, if you've already won or are about to make your first move. That's why time failed to humble you, because humility comes from believing you are small, and time taught you exactly how dangerous you are when you stop lying to yourself. You no longer need proof. You no longer need witnesses. You no longer need closure. You let time do its worst, and when it was done, you were still standing, different, quieter, colder, clearer. They aged. You upgraded. They carry years like weight. You carry years like weapons. So when they ask, confused, almost afraid, why didn't time humble you? The real answer is this: time only humbles the ones who never learn how to use it. And you didn't let time pass you. You absorbed it. And here's the part they really don't want to admit. Time didn't just fail to humble you. It exposed everyone else. While they were busy aging into excuses, you were aging into clarity. While they were counting years like losses, you were counting patterns. While they were mourning who they used to be, you were dissecting why you ever had to be that version at all. Time peeled the masks off the room, not your face. You saw who only respected strength. You saw who disappeared when you stopped chasing. You saw who only loved you when you were smaller than them. You saw who needed you confused to feel superior. And once you saw it, you never unsaw it. That's why your silence feels heavier now. That's why your absence causes panic. That's why your patience unsettles people more than your anger ever did. Because time trained you to understand something brutal and sacred at the same time. Most people don't change. They stall. They don't evolve. They cope. They don't grow. They decorate their fear. But you didn't decorate the wound. You went inside it. You sat alone with unanswered questions while others drowned themselves in noise. You stayed present in discomfort while others ran from it. You let the nights stretch long and quiet and merciless, and you listened. Time became your interrogator, and you didn't crack. You learned that healing isn't pretty. It's not soft music and forgiveness quotes. It's tearing apart your own lies. It's admitting where you were weak. It's accepting where you were cruel. It's killing versions of yourself you once needed to survive. That's why you don't flinch when things fall apart anymore. You've already dismantled yourself and rebuilt from the bones. They still think strength looks like confidence. They still think power looks like speed. They still think dominance looks like volume. Time taught you otherwise. Strength is restraint. Power is timing. Dominance is knowing you don't need to prove anything. You learned how long people can pretend, how long systems can fake stability, how long lies can hold before collapsing under their own weight. And now you move like someone who knows how stories end. That's what makes them nervous. Because you don't rush toward rewards. You don't panic at delays. You don't fear starting over. You've watched time erase empires, relationships, reputations, and identities. And you're still here. Not bitter, not desperate, not begging, just precise. Time didn't humble you because humility requires submission to something larger than you. And time taught you this forbidden truth. You are not beneath it. You learned how to bend with seasons without losing your shape. You learned how to wait without rotting. You learned how to endure without becoming cruel to yourself. That's why people who once dismissed you now study you quietly. That's why those who mocked your pace now whisper about your trajectory. That's why those who thought you were behind suddenly realize they lost sight of you entirely. You didn't fall behind. You went underground. You let time strip away distractions until all that remained was intent. You stopped announcing moves. You stopped explaining motives. You stopped negotiating your worth. And in that silence, you became lethal. Because the most dangerous thing time can create is someone who understands patience and action. Someone who can wait years and strike in seconds. Someone who doesn't fear endings. Because they've already survived the worst ones. They hoped time would soften you. But time doesn't soften steel. It tempers it. And now you don't glow like potential anymore. You hum like inevitability. And inevitability is what terrifies them most. Because potential can be debated, talent can be doubted, dreams can be mocked. But inevitability? That's a countdown with no pause button. Time taught you how to sit inside uncertainty without begging it to end. It taught you how to keep moving when no one was watching. It taught you how to survive seasons where nothing made sense and still not poison yourself with cynicism. You stopped asking, when will it be my turn? You started asking, what is this shaping me into? That single shift changed everything. They kept trying to outpace time. You learned how to outlast it. They chased shortcuts. You learned depth. They begged for signs. You learned how to read silence. They burned themselves out trying to be seen. You disappeared long enough to become undeniable. Time didn't humble you because you didn't fight it like an enemy. You studied it like a weapon. You learned that most people break not because life is hard, but because they demand it be easy. You stopped demanding. You accepted that growth feels like loss before it feels like power. That clarity feels lonely before it feels liberating. That evolution feels like betrayal. Because the old you will always beg you to stay. And you walked anyway. That's why you don't romanticize your past anymore. That's why nostalgia doesn't trap you. That's why regret doesn't paralyze you. You harvested the lessons and burned the altar. Time taught you how to grieve without drowning, how to remember without reopening wounds, how to forgive without reopening doors. You learned that mercy doesn't mean access, that compassion doesn't require proximity, that love doesn't require self-erasure, and that realization alone separated you from the herd. They still confuse endurance with stagnation. They still confuse loyalty with self-abandonment. They still confuse peace with numbness. You don't. You know the difference between resting and quitting, between waiting and hesitating, between solitude and isolation. Time didn't shrink your heart. It disciplined it. You became selective with energy, precise with words, intentional with silence. You stopped explaining yourself to people committed to misunderstanding you. You stopped performing goodness for those who weaponize it. You stopped bleeding for audiences that clap and vanish. And suddenly, everything changed. Because time reveals a brutal truth most people never integrate. You don't rise by convincing others. You rise by becoming so internally aligned that opposition loses leverage. That's what you did. You aligned pain with purpose, loss with direction, delay with preparation. So now, when they try to rush you, it doesn't work. When they try to pressure you, it doesn't stick. When they try to provoke you, it doesn't land. You already lived through worse without applause. They underestimated how long you could stay uncomfortable without breaking character. They underestimated how deeply you were willing to change rather than complain. They underestimated how much solitude you could survive without going insane. They thought time would make you doubt yourself. Instead, time made you accurate. You know who you are when no one agrees with you. You know what you're capable of when everything collapses. You know exactly how far you can be pushed and where you become dangerous. That's why you don't need revenge. You don't need validation. You don't need to be understood. You just need time. And time already chose you. Because the ones time humbles are the ones who refuse to listen. And you listened. You adapted. You endured. You evolved. So when they look at you now, older, sharper, quieter, stronger, and ask themselves why time didn't break you, the answer is simple, and it haunts them. Time didn't make you small. It revealed how big you were always willing to become. And once you understand that, something irreversible locks into place. You stop fearing the clock. You stop racing ghosts. You stop trying to prove you're on schedule. Because time already showed you the truth no motivational quote ever could. There is no universal timeline for becoming dangerous. Some people peak early and decay quietly. Some people bloom loudly and rot fast. Some people get everything they want and still die hollow. But you were built for delayed ignition. You were meant to cook slowly, to sit in pressure, to marinate in contradiction. Time didn't reward you quickly because it was testing something deeper than talent. It was testing integrity under erosion. Could you keep your values when no one was watching? Could you keep your discipline when rewards were late? Could you keep your edge without turning bitter? Could you keep your heart without letting it make you weak? Most people fail one of those checkpoints. You didn't. You learned how to hold compassion in one hand and ruthlessness in the other, without letting either take control. That balance, that's not normal. That's why people can't categorize you anymore. They can't decide if you're healed or broken, soft or dangerous, calm or calculating. Good. Confusion is camouflage. Time taught you how to be unreadable without being fake, how to be kind without being naive, how to be patient without being passive. You stopped broadcasting intention. You stopped narrating your growth. You stopped leaking your future to people stuck in your past. And suddenly, your presence changed. You don't announce power. You don't posture. You don't threaten. You arrive, and rooms feel it. Because time doesn't just age the body, it refines the signal. Your signal used to be noisy, emotional, reactive, scattered. Now it's clean, focused, dense. People feel like they're missing information around you, like conversations have subtext they can't decode. Like you already know something they don't. Sometimes you do. Because time trained you to see consequences before actions, patterns before events, endings before beginnings. You don't gamble with energy anymore. You don't invest blindly. You don't chase excitement disguised as opportunity. You've seen too much collapse to confuse chaos with growth. That's why you don't rush love. You don't rush partnerships. You don't rush alliances. Time taught you how expensive trust really is. And that's another reason it didn't humble you. It educated you in cost. You know the cost of pretending, the cost of shrinking, the cost of staying where you've outgrown the air. You paid those prices early. Now you move like someone who's already settled the debt. They thought years would make you desperate. Instead, years made you selective. They thought waiting would make you insecure. Instead, waiting made you sovereign. They thought solitude would break you. Instead, solitude taught you how powerful you are without witnesses. That's the part they can't replicate. Anyone can perform when praised. Anyone can feel strong when supported. Anyone can look confident when winning. But you learned how to stand alone without rotting inside. You learned how to lose illusions without losing direction, how to be disappointed without becoming small, how to be unseen without becoming invisible. Time doesn't humble people like that. It arms them. So now, when people try to rush you, you smile. When they try to shame your pace, you stay quiet. When they try to measure you by years, you let them misjudge. Because you're no longer playing the same game. They're counting time. You're counting leverage. They're aging. You're compounding. And that's why time didn't humble you. It realized, too late, that you were never meant to be reduced by it. You were meant to become something it couldn't undo. And once you become something time can't undo, the world starts behaving differently around you. Pressure doesn't scare you anymore. It clarifies you. Uncertainty doesn't paralyze you. It sharpens you. Loss doesn't empty you. It rearranges you. You don't panic when things go quiet. You don't spiral when momentum stalls. You don't beg reality to explain itself, because time already taught you the most ruthless lesson of all. Nothing owes you clarity, except your own actions. You stopped asking life to be fair. You stopped demanding explanations. You stopped confusing delay with denial. And the moment you stopped pleading with time, time stopped testing you the same way. You learned how to move without emotional leakage, how to experience pain without advertising it, how to carry scars without letting them define your posture. That's why people feel uneasy around you now. You don't look hungry. You don't look rushed. You don't look desperate for outcome. You look prepared. Prepared is dangerous in a world addicted to urgency. Most people collapse because they confuse motion with progress. They exhaust themselves chasing movement. They burn out trying to prove they're alive. You didn't do that. You let time strip you down until only what mattered survived. No excess emotion, no borrowed ambition, no inherited fear, just intention. You don't flinch at endings because time already showed you. Endings are not punishments, they're filters. They remove what can't follow you. That's why your circle got smaller. That's why your tolerance got tighter. That's why your standards became non-negotiable. Not because you became cold, but because you became precise. Time didn't turn you cruel. It turned you selective. You know the difference between patience and self-betrayal now. You know the difference between loyalty and fear of being alone. You know the difference between peace and numbness. And that awareness rewired you at a cellular level. You don't over-explain anymore. You don't chase closure. You don't need the last word. You let silence finish conversations for you. That terrifies people who rely on chaos to feel powerful. Because you can sit in stillness without leaking anxiety. You can wait without decaying. You can watch without revealing position. Time taught you how to stay human without being exploitable. That's rare. Most people either harden into monsters or soften into victims. You became something else entirely. Balanced, controlled, unapologetic. You know when to be gentle. You know when to withdraw. You know when to apply pressure without emotion. That's not something you learn in books. That's not something you inherit. That's something time gives only to those who don't beg it to stop. They hoped years would humble you, make you doubt yourself, shrink your vision, dull your edge. Instead, years carved discipline into your nervous system. They trained your instincts. They burned patience into your bones. Now you don't rush transformation. You schedule it. You don't fear missing out. You fear missing alignment. And alignment is the one thing time cannot corrupt. That's why you move slower, but arrive heavier. That's why you speak less, but land deeper. That's why your presence feels final. Because you don't carry the energy of someone trying to become something. You carry the energy of someone who already survived becoming. So when they look at you, older, sharper, calmer, more dangerous, and wonder why time didn't humble you, what they're really asking is, how did this person pass through erosion and come out more intact? The answer is simple and unforgiving. You didn't let time define you. You let it reveal you. And once something is revealed at that level, it can never be reduced again.